there was a revolution in technology going on at that time. My first semester in graduate school, we used to write and send postcards to people who written research articles, and they would send us a reprint of their thing. And that's because we had no easy way of copying their paper. You read their journal in the library, but if you had enough money, you could pay $1 to get a photograph of a paper on some paper that was stiff and had metal in it, it was not a plain piece of plain paper. And then the second semester, this machine came out from the Xerox company, a plain paper copier, and that just was like a tremendous revolution. We could take a book and put it on the thing and copy a page for 5 cents or something like that. You can sit there and copy 10 pages for 50 cents. So that, and anyway, the heart of that technology, the plain paper copier, was a material that conducted electricity when you shine light on it. And that was the area that I was studying, but I was studying it with different kind of materials. I was studying it with organic materials. That's something that has carbon in it, and all plastic materials are usually made out of this kind of stuff. Whereas this other stuff was this poisonous compound called selenium, which was deposited on his drum. It was a hard material. Once it was deposited on this big drum that rotated in that machine. The powder itself was poisonous. And whenever that machine got scratched, you would get a line right across the paper that you were copying. And that mean the technician had to come and change the drum or try to polish it out, but it was a problem. They were looking for something better, so they were looking for new photoconductors. And I made a big breakthrough, somewhat accident, but I noticed the importance of the accidental result that I got, and there was a lot of people trying to solve how this material worked in a very prototype material. People were studying it. People who had been famous in peripheral areas and already had a reputation were doing it. And I made a big breakthrough, and had a lot to do with knowing that this material, in the presence of air, acts differently electronically than what you think it would. That if you took the air away, it behaved totally different, and it wouldn't actually work. It really needed to have air touching it. The air was lacking like an impurity, and we often use impurities in electronics to make things work. Like all silicon is doped with something to make it work. Pure silicon will not conduct electricity, but if you put antimony or tin, traces of it, you can make it go one way or the other. And in this material that I studied, air was important, oxygen was important to do that, and everybody missed that. And when I did it, that really opened up that field. With that for my PhD, I got a tremendous offer from IBM, who was also interested in making copying machines, and that brought me to San Jose. And at that point, I had felt I had done some postdoctoral work, and it came out nice. And again, I did something that I was a little bit lucky, and after I'd done it, people were kind of amazed. Jesus, that was right under her nose, and you did that. Yeah, and so I started thinking, you know, I've been really lucky. I wonder if I'm a phony. I said, oh, hell with it. Am I lucky? I'm just lucky. So my own self-confidence, you know, just changed. I just said, I'm just going to think of myself as lucky. I always manage to get to the right answer that other people do. I don't have to worry about how smart or dumb I am, you know. But I'm just going to be lucky, and I was lucky at IBM. I was lucky, and zoomed up the management chain in the research thing, and they were happy to have me. Plus, happy to have a Chicano. I mean, that was those days. There weren't many. You know.
What year was this?
So I came to San Jose in 1968. Yeah, and they paid me a lot of money. You know, it's not like what these people get these days. You know, millions of dollars. But when I was a postdoctoral student at Caltech. And let me just say, after I went to UCLA, I went to Riverside. That professor didn't stay. He went to Dartmouth. I went to Dartmouth with him, finished the PhD research at Dartmouth, got the degree from Riverside. Since Riverside was a brand new school, it didn't have a reputation, I thought I'd pick some more famous professors to work with. So the really bright guy, young guy at the University of Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, I went to work for him for 2 years. We published 9 papers and discovered a lot of new effects. Then I wanted to get back to California, so I took another postdoctoral thing at Caltech, which is a famous science school. I worked with a famous professor. This professor let you do whatever you wanted. He didn't really care. He just would put his name on your paper. But I had worked out something that I thought would work. And in that year, I made it work. And then IBM Recruiter found me there and I was mostly interested in my PhD work. They were really interested in these photoconducting materials. And after I met the recruiter, in a couple of days, the director of the research lab and the manager of the physics, they came to visit me at Caltech, you know. And they invited me to come in and give them a seminar on what I was doing, and then they made me a fabulous offer. When I say fabulous, I think what the typical PhD chemist was getting at Caltech, an offer, was $11,000 a year. The physics were getting $13,000 a year, and this was 1968. The ones who were getting the big money were the aeronautical engineers. We were trying to put a man on the moon at that time, and these guys were being recruited heavily. So IBM made me an offer at $18,000. So all the physics and chemistry guys says, Jesus Christ, you know, that is so much money, you know. It's just like the aeronautical engineers. You know. And came up to IBM, and the next year I was able to buy a house. You know. Houses work. That's what they cost in those days. Anywhere $18,000 to $20,000. You know, it was amazing. You know. Okay, so that was IBM, and since they liked me a lot, I was really conscious of, you know, that I'd spent a lot of time not thinking that much about Chicano things, and in fact I missed a lot of the civil rights stuff in the early 60s, because I was in Dartmouth, I was in New Hampshire, or I was in Philadelphia. I was more conscious of the black civil rights thing, but didn't know what the hell was going on my sister was heavily involved in stuff in L.A. So those days we'd write to each other, but you couldn't afford phone calls from one part of the country to the other. That was just too expensive. But
what was your sister doing?
Well, she got involved. She went to Cal State LA, and she got a job on the campus. I'm not sure where the money came, but part of her job was to organize the Mexican American youth groups. They used to call them Mayu at some of the high schools. And so she was at Lincoln High School, Roosevelt, and Garfield High Schools. And what started first at Lincoln was the walkouts. So my sister Vicky comes out very prominently. Well, somebody comes out for her in that movie, The Walkout, as being the only college student, in there organizing, the only one with a car, So she's, so she got involved in those walkouts. And the teacher at Lincoln High School has the same last name as ours, but we're not related. That's Sal Castro. Yeah, that was. But and we were all very familiar with. We all went to Roosevelt. Our in-laws went to Garfield. My cousins went to Lincoln. So we knew a lot of people in those schools. So she was involved in that. I came here in '68 and didn't know any to San Jose. Didn't know any Mexicanos other than that first year we rented a house from a Mexicano, and they've remained our friends to this day. But we live right next door to him. But I didn't get to meet anybody socially. I mean, and that's a strange thing, Back in East LA, you've got cousins and friends getting married and going to parties, and I would see that the cars decorated, but I didn't know any Mexican people. And I said, God, I got to get involved somehow. At IBM, they're all white. When I went to Riverside, I moved away. But we were starting to go out together. So I would come back to Los Angeles and we would date. And then when I moved to Dartmouth, that's all the way across the country. By that time we had been engaged, and I wasn't sure when we would get married, depending on finances or what. But Dartmouth was a boys' college, so when I went over there, I'm in this environment of nothing but guys. I mean, there's no girls anywhere, and you just get a different kind of feeling. So marriage, just all of a sudden, I'm speeding that up. I'm not going to be waiting to see what fate has, And so we got married in February. I moved to Dartmouth in September, and in February I came back to LA and got married.
Of which year?
So we got married in 1963. Yeah, 1963. Yeah. And I took her with me to Dartmouth, which she doesn't quite forgive me for, because she had all her friends in East LA. She had a nice car. Well, I took her car. We drove her car over. She had a nice job, and so I take her to Dartmouth, or a life where I spend every day till 10 o'clock at night in the lab. And she says, "You're going to the lab again? You're going to the lab again?" Oh, man. So she was pretty lonely and miserable for a couple of years. Well, for 1 year. And then our first child was born there. So our first child was born in New Hampshire. Then we moved. I finished the work there, and I mailed a thesis to the Riverside, and they mailed me a PhD. I had already passed all my qualifying exams and everything, the oral exams. So it was just a matter of doing the thesis work, and so they were happy to accommodate my move. Then we moved to Philadelphia and that was more fun. It was a more urbane thing. My wife made a lot of friends. We got to know all the neighbors. New Hampshire was not very friendly. People don't feel comfortable with new people there. They keep to themselves. And, so we had another kid. My first daughter was born in Philadelphia. Then we moved to Pasadena, Caltech, for 1 year. Then to San Jose in 1968. And here we had two more daughters. One 1969 and 1970. I wanted to elaborate on where we lived and where I sent my kids to school. And one of the things when I came to IBM, I was asking them where to live, and they would say, "Well, you don't want to live in this part of the town, which is east of Monterey Road. You want to live toward that." So right away I knew that's where the white people live, and this is where the raza lives. So I said, "No, that's I'm going to look." And in fact, I did. My first house that we rented was on the east side of Monterey Road. But ultimately, I wanted a little more mixture, and that's when we moved to downtown in San Jose. And we thought that that was an ideal place, integrated kinds of neighborhoods, at the edge of a Linder neighborhood, at the edge of Lowell, University, it would be a good place. And I would put my kids in public school there. And we would be involved in the public school the way I see white people get involved with their kids. And that makes the classroom better. That makes the teacher better when the parents are involved with their kids. We did that for a while. And those were tumultuous times because integration was coming to San Jose, primarily with San Jose Unified, and there was some real strong, passionate stuff going on against it. I mean, a lot of the white people did not like that idea, and the thrust of it, a lot of it was coming from lawyers, legal people, not necessarily with kids in the school. We wanted them to be in an integrated school and relate to other Latino kids. And so we made a conscious decision to move to downtown San Jose and to put our kids in the public schools. And we didn't know how difficult that is to look for excellence in the public schools. And so we gave it a shot, and we changed our minds. And it was had a lot to do with how some of the teachers perceived me and my wife. I heard it from a student at San Jose State that was doing something at Lowell School, and she said, "Oh yeah, the teacher said to keep away, these are bad parents." Bad parents. I said, that's the last thing that I would think he would call it. I would think he would call us good parents. We have A students, they do their work. We're involved in the schools. But somehow the principal and the teachers called us as bad parents. And at the suggestion of Jose Villa, we were going to put our kids in St. Patrick's School. And we put all four of them at one time, ranging from 6th grade to kindergarten. And actually that was the best thing I ever did for my kids. We took our kids there hoping to find better competence in teaching. And what we found was love from the teachers to the kids, something we didn't expect. How those teachers love the kids. And that in turn taught us to whatever you want, school, you're going to get from us. We'll fix your school. We'll re-engineer this place. We'll build you new kitchens and bathrooms. Whatever you want. You just asked, and that was just great. So St. Pat's was good for my kids. They continued on to Catholic high schools, and then they went on to universities. Pretty much led by Gerald, my oldest, who was a strong student. Went on to Bellarmine, went on to Stanford, and then 3 others followed him on to Stanford. So that was because of a good decision that we made in sending him to St. Pat. At that time, I was also interested in how I could impact the education, and I did it probably from a strange place. I got involved in the Chicano community in San Jose through MAPA, because it's the only one I heard about. It was in the paper. And I read that the president of MAPA had just kind of semi-adopted a family whose father was killed in a traffic accident, and they lost the income of the family, and so Pat Vasquez was leading a drive to financially help this family, and he was the president of MAPA. And he was going to have an open house downtown San Jose a certain Saturday. So I went and I met Pat, and I came with a $100 check. And I said, this is for that family that you're doing. And so he invited me to join MAPA and stuff like that. And when I joined MAPA, I would just listen at the beginning, not knowing all the local issues and stuff. But I met 2 people who became very close to me. Leo Rivera, who's a mathematician in MAPA, and Bob Garcia, who was a physicist in MAPA. And I just didn't expect to run into that kind of people in MAPA. So we became very, very close. And in about 2 years after that, the leadership changed, and Leo Rivera became the president. Pat Vasquez went down. But there was a big controversy at that time that's kind of split the Mexicano community, again, in kind of a conservative, liberal approach to civil rights. And that was something called Fiesta de las Rosas. And on one side, a lot of the more radical groups, more activist groups, formed La Confederación de la Raza Unida, a new umbrella group, and basically formed to stop that fiesta. That fiesta was actually, at that time, was going to be recreated, something that San Jose hadn't passed, but it was an Italian lady who was going to do it, and it was going to have a Spanish theme. Nothing Mexicano, Chicano, it was Spanish. It was something throwback to 100 years ago. But on the other hand, some of the MAPA people, and certainly the GI Forum people, liked the idea. They thought it would be a new parade stuff, and so they were on the other side. And that just had big clashes, tore MAPA in half. We finally got over it, but that was my first view of Chicano politics in San Jose. What I thought I would do is I would work to initially to help develop and support candidates for school boards that were Latino, whether it was community college or whether it was elementary school district, that if MAPA helped them, that would be a good thing to do. So I went around, and there weren't a lot of people running for these things. and ultimately I ran myself for the City College district. It's now Evergreen City College, but Evergreen hadn't been built yet. And I met a lot of bright people.
What year was this?
1969. So that's when Rudy Cordova, he became my campaign chairman. Regua was in there. Mauro Chavez was teaching at City College. Other people, and they had close ties with people like you, some of the teachers at San Jose High. They had close ties, you know. So I met a lot of people there. Adam Escoto, he was heavily leading, working for the district to implement a desegregation plan. So you know he was a really good guy. And anyway, that's the way I came from the political end of it. And then I got involved in running people for the city council. I sort of drafted to help Al Garza, and I did at the very beginning. And Al ultimately got appointed, and then he won an election, but we ran a campaign, and I was just a campaign manager for a while, and then Jim Ono came in and took over, but that introduced me to many of the politicians, and Norman Mineta started a charter review committee in either in 1972 or 1973, and I got appointed to that. So we got to look at the charter, and I got on the charter review committee, and one of the things that I pushed, and I said that we should go to districts. Voting as a city at large for a candidate really argues against the Latino community, because we can't win in the whole city, and yet we have a sizable population in areas that need to be represented, and we never had any Latino. And at the same time, other forces did. The Community Alert Patrol, led by Fran Escalante and Shirley Trevino at that time, a bunch of students from Santa Clara University, with professional support from Fred Hirsch, a community organizer, very radical, very knowledgeable, very bright. They also wanted to push districting, and they actually put a plan together, and they almost raised enough signatures to put it on the ballot. And the city council really screwed them up. It says, okay, we're going to put your thing on the ballot. They voted, and then 2 months later they changed their mind. The city council would take it off, and by then the time had passed to gather more signatures. So it was a disaster, but it brought out the topic to the forelight that districting has some advantages, and whereas we had pushed it through the government channels, but it didn't get anywhere. A couple of years later, Jeremy Fogel, who's now a big Superior Court judge, headed a new thing. Jane Fonda came and held a big fundraiser, and so new people came into the districting thing, and ultimately the city put together a new charter review committee, packed it a lot with prominent people, and this time then it passed. Once it passed, that we now had districts, that we elected Blanca Alvarado from a Latino district, and we've had that one ever since. Manny Diaz, and then these the Campos family. But that was the start, you know. And Moneta started that with a charter review committee back in 72, 73. And Community Alert Patrol did a lot to help generate publicity for that. And they were thought they were just a bunch of crazy kids at the time, and they weren't, you know, they were pretty effective, you know. But that was, then I met you, and you know, ran for San Jose Unified, which was very difficult against Mr. Hammer, whose family were very well known in the area, and I don't think he was that much interested. He just wanted to make sure that it was segregated, I mean integrated. That was what the lawyers wanted. Integration was an important thing. And I said, you don't think that through, it does you no good. And all you're going to do is end up moving Mexican kids around. I doubt if you're going to move white kids around. And that's what they did. They ended up busing Mexican kids down to Almaden Valley. And then they stopped as the money ran out, yeah. But so that kind of ended a lot of my politics stuff. And my career at IBM then took off in the mid-70s, so I was really, really busy. And was totally consumed by IBM for the next 15 years.